buttercup, you're a puppy dog. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall, won't stop till I get enough.
Hey there, deep divers. Ready to put on your tinfoil hats? Just kidding. Well, sort of. Today, we're going deep on a topic that might make you think twice about your online habits.
Sounds a little ominous. I'm intrigued.
We're going to unpack Ronan Farrow's new HBO documentary, Surveilled. And let me tell you, it's a bit of a digital horror story.
Ronan Farrow, huh? The guy who broke the Harvey Weinstein story. He's definitely got a knack for uncovering some dark stuff. So what's this new documentary all about?
It's about the spyware industry. And as Farrow shows us, it's way more pervasive than most people think. We're talking billions of dollars, cutting-edge tech, and targets that include, well, pretty much anyone.
Spyware. Yeah, I vaguely remember hearing about that like years ago. Didn't we all think that was just a problem for like celebrities and politicians?
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
But Farrow's film really drives home the point that this is an issue that affects all of us. Our data, our privacy, it's all up for grabs.
Okay, so maybe a little refresher is in order. What exactly are we talking about when we say spyware?
Right, good point. Essentially, spyware is software that gets onto your devices, like your phone or your computer, and secretly monitors everything you do.
Everything, like keystrokes, browsing history, that kind of thing.
Oh, it's much more than that. We're talking recording your conversations, tracking your location, even accessing your camera and microphone.
Hold on, my camera and microphone, that's getting a little creepy. How does this stuff even get on our devices in the first place?
Well, there are a few ways. Sometimes it's through phishing scams, where you click on a malicious link or download a dodgy file.
Phishing? Yeah, I've gotten those emails before. You just won $1 million, click here. That's never a good sign, is it?
Definitely not. But here's the really scary part. There are even more sophisticated methods, like zero-click exploits, where your device can be infected without you doing anything at all.
Zero click. So I don't even have to click on anything and my phone could be compromised. That's kind of terrifying. I mean, who's behind all of this? Why is this such a big industry?
Well, it's a whole ecosystem, really. You've got governments who want to keep tabs on their citizens, corporations trying to get an edge on their competitors, even private individuals who use spyware for, well, let's just say, less than savory purposes.
So it's not just shady government agencies. Regular people are buying and selling this stuff.
Yep. And that's one of the things Farrow really emphasizes, the fact that this technology is becoming increasingly accessible. It's not just the domain of nation states anymore.
Okay, now I'm officially creeped out. But let's be real. I'm just an average person. Why would anyone want to spy on me?
That's the thing. You don't have to be a high-profile target to be valuable. Your data, even seemingly mundane stuff, could be used for identity theft, blackmail, all sorts of nasty things.
So even if I'm not like a political dissident or a journalist uncovering government secrets, I could still be a target.
Absolutely. And what's even more unsettling is that, according to Farrow's documentary, it's not just authoritarian regimes using spyware, it's happening in democracies too, even with constitutions that are supposed to protect our privacy.
Wait a minute. Democracies. You're telling me that governments that are supposed to uphold our freedoms are using spyware to spy on their own citizens? How is that even possible?
It's a complicated issue, but the justification often boils down to national security. The argument is that it's necessary to prevent terrorism and keep us all safe.
But where do you draw the line? At what point does national security become an excuse for mass surveillance? And how do we know that this power isn't being abused?
That's a question a lot of people are asking. And Farrow's film raises some serious concerns about the lack of transparency and oversight when it comes to government use of spyware.
So even in countries that supposedly value freedom and individual rights, we could be under surveillance without even knowing it. I gotta say, this is all starting to feel a bit like a dystopian novel.
Yeah, it definitely gives you that Big Brother vibe. But before we spiral into a full-blown conspiracy theory, let's take a closer look at some specific examples. Farrow's documentary highlights a few particularly disturbing cases, and they really illustrate just how insidious this technology can be.
Okay, I'm all ears. Lay it on me. What kind of cases are we talking about?
Well, one that really stood out to me involved a journalist in Hungary who was targeted with this incredibly powerful spyware called Pegasus.
Pegasus? I think I've heard of that. Isn't that the one developed by that Israeli company, NSO Group? The one that's been linked to all sorts of human rights abuses?
That's the one. And in this case, it was allegedly used to hack into the journalist's phone, monitor his communications, and potentially even plant false information to discredit him.
Wow. So even in a country like Hungary, which is part of the European Union, this kind of thing is happening. It really makes you wonder where the checks and balances are. What's to stop governments from using this technology against anyone they deem a threat, even if that threat is simply holding them accountable? It's a question a lot of people are asking. And it's not just Hungary. Farrow's documentary uncovers similar cases in other democracies too: Spain, Mexico, even the U.S.
Hold on, the U.S.? Are you serious? I thought we had laws against this kind of thing.
We do, but the laws haven't quite caught up with the technology. The legal framework around spyware is still pretty murky.
Murky. That's putting it mildly. So what, we're just supposed to trust that our governments are using this stuff responsibly?
Well, trust but verify, right? That's where transparency and oversight come in. We need clear guidelines for when and how this technology can be used, and independent bodies to hold those in power accountable.
Sounds like a pretty tall order, especially given how secretive this whole industry is. But I guess that's where public awareness comes in, right? The more people know about this stuff, the more pressure there is to do something about it.
Exactly. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, as they say. And that's one of the things I appreciate about Farrow's work. He's shining a light on these issues and forcing us to have these uncomfortable conversations.
Well, uncomfortable they may be, but necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk solutions. What can we do to protect ourselves in this increasingly Orwellian world?
Well, first of all, don't panic. Awareness is the first step. And there are some practical steps you can take.
Okay, give me the lowdown. What can I do to keep those digital spies at bay?
The basics are still important. Strong passwords, two-factor authentication, being cautious about clicking on links or downloading files from unknown sources. Think before you click, basically.
Yeah, I've heard all that before. But it's easy to get complacent, you know? It's like, how much damage can one little click really do?
More than you might think. And the spyware industry is constantly evolving. They're always coming up with new tricks, so we have to stay vigilant.
So it's a constant cat and mouse game, huh? Okay, so basic digital hygiene, check. What else can we do? Should we all just ditch our smartphones and go live off the grid?
That's one way to do it. But for most of us, that's not really an option. There are less drastic measures. For example, you can choose privacy-focused apps and services.
Privacy-focused? Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, for messaging, there's Signal or WhatsApp. They offer end-to-end encryption, which means that even the companies themselves can't read your messages.
Oh, interesting. I've heard good things about Signal. Maybe it's time to make the switch.
It's definitely worth considering. And beyond individual actions, we can also support organizations that are fighting for digital rights and privacy.
Like who? Are there any groups that are really making a difference in this fight?
Absolutely. There are groups like the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the EFF, and Access Now. They do a lot of great work advocating for stronger privacy laws and holding governments and corporations accountable.
Okay, so we can choose privacy-focused tech, support advocacy groups.
Mm-hmm.
What about legislation? Are there any laws being passed to actually regulate this industry?
There's definitely some movement in that direction. In the U.S., there's the Stop Spyware Act, which aims to ban the sale and use of certain types of spyware.
Yeah.
And in the EU, there are ongoing discussions about tightening regulations on the export of surveillance technology.
So there's hope. It's not all doom and gloom.
It's not. It's a long and complex process. But the more public awareness there is, the more likely we are to see meaningful change. Documentaries like Farrow's are crucial in that regard. They're helping to bring these issues to the forefront and spark a public debate.
Right, because if we don't talk about it, nothing will change.
Yeah.
But honestly, it can all feel pretty overwhelming. Where do we even begin to tackle a problem this big?
One step at a time, right? Pick one thing you can do, whether it's changing a tech habit, donating to an advocacy group, or just talking to your friends and family about these issues. Every little bit helps.
Okay, I like that. One step at a time. But I have to ask, is there anything that gives you hope? I mean, is there anything that makes you think we can actually win this fight?
You know, what gives me hope is seeing how many people are starting to wake up to these issues. There's a growing movement of people who are demanding better privacy protections and pushing back against surveillance overreach.
I see your point. It's easy to get caught up in the fear and paranoia, but ultimately we want to use technology for good, not let it be used against us.
Exactly. And that brings up a whole other dimension to this issue that we haven't even touched on yet. The potential for spyware to be used not just for surveillance, but for manipulation.
Wait, manipulation? What do you mean?
Well, think about it. If spyware can be used to gather information about our habits, our beliefs, even our fears, It could also be used to target us with personalized propaganda or disinformation.
Whoa, that's a whole other level of creepy. It's like mind control, but through technology.
It's a very real concern. We've already seen how social media can be used to manipulate public opinion. But if you add spyware into the mix, it's a recipe for disaster. Imagine a world where elections are swayed not by reasoned debate, but by algorithms designed to exploit our vulnerabilities.
That's some serious Black Mirror stuff right there.
Yes.
And I thought this conversation couldn't get any more unsettling.
It's definitely a sobering thought, and it underscores the importance of being aware, being critical of the information we consume, and demanding transparency and accountability from those in power.
Okay, I'm officially freaked out now. But seriously, this has been a really eye-opening conversation. So before we wrap up, any final thoughts for our deep divers out there? What's the one thing you want them to take away from this episode?
Well, I think the key takeaway here is that our digital lives are increasingly intertwined with our real lives. What happens online doesn't stay online.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's all connected. So what can we do about it, besides freaking out and throwing our phones in the ocean?
Well, there are things we can do, both individually and collectively. We've talked about some of them already, choosing privacy-focused tech, supporting digital rights organizations.
Right. But it all feels so, I don't know, insignificant. Like, what can one person really do to change things?
Well, think about it this way. If enough people start demanding better privacy protections, companies and governments will have to listen.
Yeah, there's power in numbers.
Yeah.
But how do we get there? How do we make this a mainstream issue?
Well, for starters, we can talk about it. Share this episode with your friends, your family, anyone who will listen. The more people who are aware of these issues, the more likely we are to see real change.
Okay, so spread the word. What else? Is there anything we can do on a more, I don't know, political level?
Absolutely. Pay attention to where your elected officials stand on these issues. Support candidates who prioritize privacy and digital rights. Vote for people who will fight for stronger regulations and oversight.
Okay, so vote with our wallets and vote at the ballot box. Got it. Any other parting words of wisdom?
I guess my final thought would be, don't give up hope. It's easy to get overwhelmed by the scope of these problems, but remember that we're not powerless. We have a voice, we have a choice, and together we can make a difference.
All right, deep divers, that's a wrap for today. We've covered a lot of ground, but the message is clear. Your privacy matters. Your data matters. And it's up to all of us to fight for a future where technology is used to empower, not exploit.
Well said. And remember, stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay curious.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a puppy dog. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.